good on the black.
Super contrast. Oh,
All right.
even more dog hairs. Oh, oops.
All right, good morning. I hope you're all doing well, not too hungover. Nice to be here. My name is Micol. I'm the founder of Vertical Crypto Art, and we're a curatorial media studio for digital art and crypto art. And I have the pleasure to be joined by Mario Klingemann and having a chat with Mario, which kind of goes a way back when we first met, right, Mario?
I don't know. I think we never met in person before today.
Yesterday, yeah.
So I think we got in touch last February the first time. Or was it earlier,
No,
actually?
it was earlier.
I mean, I had you on my radar for longer, but then with the Hickett Nunk starting, I thought you were the best person to kind of pull the strings together and spread the good word, find kind of interesting things to talk about. So
we'll go on and speak about Hickett for sure.
But, super happy to finally get to touch you.
Before we start, I want to give a brief introduction to everybody of who is Mario.
God, who's Mario? So, well, I am an artist now, but didn't know about that for I think 30 years. Before that, I guess I was some guy having fun with computers and making what we call creative code, trying to make pretty pictures, but it took me actually until, I don't know, like 10 years ago or so, until I dare to call myself an artist, which is really important, that like you have to say that. And well, I'm lucky that this worked out for me. So I do physical works in galleries, museums, festivals. I did a lot of generative art. I mean, I come from the the best time I had, the best decade I had was during when we had Flash, when there was still Flash alive. So, and kind of the vibe of that community reminds me a bit of what we have here now with NFTs. So I kind of was in a it hurt a lot when Flash died because all the good stuff died with it too. And so when the whole NFT stuff picked up, I felt, we might get that renaissance again of creative, doing like people from all different kinds of backgrounds doing crazy stuff and not caring what's like about people saying that's not art or and really people from different talents using whatever they can to put it out in the world. And of course, since 2 years, I'm also kind of part of the crypto space. And what did I forget? So I do a lot of AI stuff. So I guess like some people might call me an AI artist, but I see that only as part of what I do, but it's an important part. And one of the better known projects that was my mind child is Botto, which is we might get into later, kind of an AI that sells its own art and is more successful than me, financially.
Before we go into Botto, I want to take it a little bit back because I've known you for over a year now, and I know you always look for the exciting, the new, the interesting. You get bored pretty easily and try and look for what is exciting to you and build that within your practice, within what you do. And so how did you find, you mentioned Flash and then you mentioned getting into NFTs as a new and exciting thing to discover for you. Talk a little bit about that journey and how it started.
So how I got into the space. So, first of all, I'm kind of driven by the need to be non-normal, even though I look very normal, but let's say do non-normal things. So there's always the Gaussian bell, and I try to get away from that peak as far as possible, ideally to the right side, depending where you look. It's like where there is stuff that not many people do. So I always see you have a space and of possibilities, and I'm trying to look for those things that have been overlooked or not done yet. And I can tell you it's a frustrating thing because it's very much based on your perception of that space. Mm-hmm. And usually, there is a lot of joy in discovering something which is very new to you, and hopefully it's something that's also very new to others, but often it happens, you arrive there, and then the moment you found it, somebody tells you, yeah, right, that's cool, but have you seen this and this? But yeah, I'm driven by that. I cannot, like, once I've found something, I cannot really stay there. So if I found an interesting aesthetic, I can explore it for a while, but once I've kind of planted all the flags that I found important, that mark the territory, I do not see any sense in taking it further, which from a art selling perspective is the most stupidest thing you can do, because once you found an audience that likes you for that thing, they want more of that. But yeah, the NFT thing. So of course, as somebody who's interested in the new, let's say blockchain was always something that got me curious. So I think I still have kind of a laptop somewhere where I tried to mine Bitcoin very early on, but of course that wallet is gone and I didn't have a GPU and nothing, so it's probably still worth nothing. So I had a look at it, but it was not really fitting into what I wanted to do. So then in, 2018, actually Super Rare got in touch with me when they started their Genesis collection, and I had a look. I mean, first the name. So I must say, 2018 was also when I just had like a major sale at Sotheby's, like the second most expensive AI artwork. So damn, I missed the first. So I felt like I was really on a good run, and like had finally managed that people were calling me an artist and not like journalists love to write like, oh, computer programmer Mario Klingemann wrote this. And so the moment when they don't say that anymore, so I felt like I arrived somewhere, and then comes these guys who have a weird name and have blinking stuff, and I don't know. So I was a snob and said, no, thanks. I think right now this is not kind of the moment for me to join.
Did you know what like NFTs were at that point, or was
I mean, yeah, I saw kind of there was a potential. I mean, I saw it it looked great because it solved that problem that I also had as somebody who makes digital art, that I had to find elaborate ways to sell kind of my art, like putting it in a computer or making a USB stick in a nice box. I don't know. So it was all these workarounds. You could not just say, here, I send you the file and give me the money. So that it worked great. But of course, 2018, it was at a price level that was ridiculous. And it was not the company I wanted to keep, right? It was all these young and daring artists who made stuff that the aesthetic didn't fit into my kind of what I thought was important, and the way it was communicated didn't feel like it was mine, loud and all about prices and selling. And I always felt, no, actually, I want to make art and somebody else should take care about this. So it didn't feel right. And so it took another 2 years until 2020, with the beginning of the pandemic. And the funny story is that the reason I got into it was not really to make money, but rather out of spite. So maybe some of you know Max Osiris, I call him one of the two little rascals.
So give a bit of context. So Max Osiris is one of the let's say early adopters of crypto art and blockchain-based art, and is well known for many things, but also for being, let's say, one of the pioneers of a movement which is called trash art, along with Robness.
Exactly. So, and we had already, let's say, an encounter earlier. I think it was a year or so before.
I actually didn't know about that.
You didn't know about that? Okay, so what happened is that Max actually took one of my pretty fresh AI works, so it was something from an installation, and he made a remix, and he calls it a remix, I called it like well, he took my thing and pasted on some kind of other painting and minted it on Super Rare. And afterwards, he came to me and said, "Hey, look, I made the remix, and like, I hope you appreciate it." And I looked at it and said, "Oh no, I don't. I would have liked that you asked me before you do that." And so I asked him to take it down again, and he didn't. Well, he said, "No, this is my art." And I said, "Well, sorry, but I don't feel there's enough." And then I went to Super Rare and asked them like if they can take it down. What happened is though that they totally banned him from the platform, which was not what I wanted. I just said like, "Hey, burn this thing." And so funny thing. So in some sense, I'm now part of Max's rebel history because he loves to bring up that story how I kind of as the whatever established artist. Kind of.
Max kind of brought you into Super Rare.
Yes, no, and so what happened is Rarible started in 2000
okay.
because and Max got kicked off Super. So I still was kind of following what he was doing, and he kind of started saying, "Yeah, and now that I'm Rarible, there's no gatekeeping. I will mint that piece that got censored by Super Rare." And I said, "Oh, okay, I guess I know what piece that is." So I looked at Rarible and said, "Oh, right, I don't even have to apply. I can just start minting," and I never applied to anything. And so I made a preliminary kind of piece, which was, so it was kind of, "You have been blocked by Mario," because my plan was like, if he does that, then I will create a performance. So, and I created my first kind of real Genesis piece, which was a performance piece, which was the idea that it was called Poison Pill. And so the idea was that if you buy this, I will block somebody on Twitter and make a video performance of it. And of course, the idea was to block Max. And I did a second piece, which was called Remedy or so. So you could buy that and that would unblock it. But and
did you do it?
Well, actually, so the point is somebody bought it. And it was actually quite expensive. And then the pandemic came and super thing, I'm Wayne, so I thought like, damn, I wasn't at the hair cutter for 2 months, and how shitty will I look on that performance video? So in the end, I didn't do the performance and asked the collector, "Can I send it back to you? Sorry, I can't go through with it." But in the end, so being on that platform, I suddenly realized, oh shit, it's not that bad after all, and like I started to understand more the aesthetics and like the beauty of it, and started minting for real. So I did my pieces, and lucky, well, it helped probably that I already had kind of course, like a reputation and a history of followers. So early on, I got kind of some really nice collectors like Coldy and Matt Keen and 10Jet. So I don't know, I had an easy start. So my stuff sold, even though it was on Rarible. And but then later on, I got a Super Rare. And I just also used it now. Like I like kind of analyzing systems and kind of, for example, the idea like, why do we see something as art? Why is somebody an artist and somebody just some dabbler? And how does this whole fame and success in that space work? And so I mint pieces which I think are more conceptual. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I think one thing I did was, I also see kind of the blockchain as almost like a way to do timestamps, like to mark events in history, because that's so beautiful. As an artist, you always like, I as an artist, like to make marks. And the blockchain is a perfect way of documenting this. So one thing I guess maybe some people know is I minted that screenshot thing. So there came the whole right-click discussion where, oh God, what was his name? Somebody said, yeah, so here I took a screenshot of your, I right-click, I saved it. So I took I replied to that guy and said like, okay, so I just took a screenshot of your tweet and now I sell it. And then of course it's sold in 10 seconds. So, and I like that because for me it's a conceptual piece of the possibilities, what's happening, what's possible.
You touched a little bit before on you coming into Rarible and the difference between open platforms and like gated platforms, right? So Super Rare is obviously a platform that you have to apply for, and Rarible is an open platform. Similarly, I think like there was that transition when Hic Nunc started and the Tezos community, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about that and how that started for you, like in your mind, because you were, I mean, for me, for sure, is how I discovered Tezos and Hic et Nunc.
So of course the story is that, let's say in around fall 2020, the whole discussion started about how Ethereum and of course Bitcoin in particular are ecologically a disaster. And in particular, Memo Acton and Kyle McDonald were kind of instrumental in kind of starting to build their Blame the Artist platform. I don't know. So in the end, it was great. They started the discussion and made actually me aware of the issues, because I guess nobody really was aware. I mean, there's still discussion kind of how big the impact is, but in the end, I still think there is an unnecessary impact. So, and of course, they built this site where you kind of have a one-click blame method. Like you could check any artist who had minted on any platform and then get their ginormous CO2 footprint. And so, people called me out and said like, oh, look what you do. So I started like, first, of course, I hated the platform because I didn't feel like the artists are the right target. Anyway, it got me thinking, and I learned about that there are alternatives, proof of stake, but I was looking around for platforms and didn't see anything that kind of felt it had the same kind of, like, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. But then January 2021, I came across, I think by accident, I saw a tweet that, Django something. Yes, I think he wrote to Artgnome saying, oh, by the way, there are now NFTs on Tezos. And I followed the link and said, oh, okay, so there was this demo platform where you could buy colors, and it just felt right. And then I just got me a wallet, which took like 5 minutes or so, and it just felt like, oh, there's something. Then I'd read deeper about Tezos, which I hadn't heard before, and I don't know, all the story, the reasonings seemed to be just right, like made sense to me, and it worked so much better, and it was super cheap. So then, I was asking I got in contact, like DM'd Kathleen and asked her, are there any platforms where I can mint something? And then there was something in the works, but then suddenly I found like there was this new site coming up, which allowed you to mint an NFT, but you couldn't even sell it, right? You could just put it there. And I say, cool, I mint something, and I did that tweet where I say, hey, I just minted an edition of 10, and if you want to buy it, send me a DM, and let's do it on a trust. There was no marketplace, right? So you could mint it, but then people had to send you the Tezos, and I would trust me that I give them. But it sold out within a few hours, and I guess of course it helped that people people see me, and so others had been. My impression was there had been a lot of artists who had seeing people making money on the blockchain, but they heard about the ecological problems, and they would never have minted on Ethereum. Also, of course, a money barrier of like the amount of gas it costs. So maybe my tweet was kind of telling them, okay, so this sounds like something we should try. And of course I love kind of raw things that are still in development. And this was this new continent where there were no rules. You could just play around. It didn't try to kind of be nice. It just was there to play. And I love these spaces. And so in the end, within a week or so, kind of other people who had already, let's say, some reputation also joined, and it was this weird automatism where suddenly a community evolved. And then you came in, and we did the chats, and I don't know, it was a very different kind of group of people, and we built this weird utopia together. And of course, the amazing thing is then just watching it happen, and things that I didn't even anticipate. Suddenly you have like people from countries who were, I don't know, like even a $10 mint is super expensive, could join, and you get this whole variety. And but at the same time, because the platform was so rough and bad, I think everybody was pretty tolerant about things that go wrong and like taking it easy and say, okay, the site is down for a day. Oh well, then it will fix itself. And people helped. So it was just this magic coming. Like I think you can't really manufacture this. This is something where the right circumstances have to come together, and we were lucky that it worked.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about like community, and I think a lot of people talk about community a lot. It's interesting because with Tezos and with Hiketnung specifically, which is, by the way, now called Teia for the people who don't know, it was an organic community in any shape or form, and actually a very artistic one too. Like you talked about how a lot of your friends that didn't want to mint on Ethereum came in, but I think also the formats, the file support of the formats brought in a lot of like AI artists, generative artists, creative coders, and kind of created this very, artist-led ecosystem.
Yeah. So yeah, you remind me. Yeah, that was one of the important things. So it was not really possible, I think, to mint any kind of dynamic generative pieces. And then suddenly, Hiketnung was always open. You can upload any file format, and then, God, I'm so bad with names. Somebody figured out you can upload an SVG, but in an SVG you can put in JavaScript code, and suddenly you have opened up this door to kind of generative art pieces or stuff that queries things, and so which was not possible really before. And again, you opened up a door to total different things, and I don't know. I think it was just the right people, kind of with the right ideas, joining together, and also kind of mutual respect for like, okay, this is not what I do, but I love this, or I discover suddenly some art community which I hadn't heard about, and of course this artist collecting, and people starting their own. Object for object, and all these crazy and all self-driven, right? There's no leader, nobody who. I mean, there were people who were active, and you were instrumental. And Mumu was super important, and so magic you cannot really kind of artificially create.
How do you think being part of such a community and like experimentation, a platform that might work, might not work, has impacted like your work and what you were doing and what you were creating? Because I know you did a lot of like pieces about it, like you were mapping the ecosystem.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess I tried to do a few things in the beginning of this still young sprout, where I felt it might help to. Like, it's always the problem, like you have this kind of nucleus of something, and at that moment, little things can have a lot of influence in the future. So if, for example, let's say Hiketnung from the beginning would have had the rankings of like who sells most, this would immediately have driven it in a certain direction. So, and I always thought like, there was the maps, which gives, like, you have this site which is unnavigatable almost in the beginning. So giving everybody a feeling like we are all in this together. So maybe having a map of this helped increase that feeling, and that say, okay, I can add on to it. And then, of course, you also see the almost like exponential growth of this, and you see it creates a story, and everybody's happy to be part of it. And then I also did this not a code of conduct thing, so maybe controversial, but I also always think less rules you need. Like, you should not have too many rules in a space. Of course, common sense should be the most one, and like common respect, but don't try to kind of anticipate what could go wrong before it has happened. I mean, of course, you should not have any super bad stuff, but that's for me common sense. So I wrote this thing, and it was also kind of meant as a just like, it was my impression, like how I would love the space to be, like open and kind of open for all kind of experimentation, but also not stifling in like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I don't know, maybe that also added to the initial spirit of things. And
talking about community and like community-owned Botto, obviously, community is it's a very important part of it. So what is Botto,
No.
and how is it influenced by the community that is part of Botto?
Well, so Botto is kind of almost like something I have been working towards since I'm doing generative art. So the idea, once you start doing generative art and you write code that produces images and then you go through hundreds of variations, at some point you wonder, like, what am I still necessary for? Of course I write the code, but then I press the spacebar and I do the selection. And then, of course, with AI arriving, you don't even write the code, you just explore latent space. So one of my core goals as an artist is to make myself redundant. So, or have a child. Like you build something that at some point is able to go its own way through the world, and I wanted to create an autonomous artist. And the question is, like, what does it take for a machine to be taken serious as an artist? And so I had various kind of iterations of like getting to that, but it only, like, in order to become autonomous, you also have to be able to pay for your own rent, and ideally also pay other people to do certain things for you that like a machine cannot do, or is not yet capable of doing. And so with the blockchain coming, I thought now is the time where you can almost automate most of the things. So Botto is the AI that is constantly running and searching for new imagery, but it's like it doesn't have any knowledge about what humans want in art, and that's where the community comes in. So as a stakeholder in Botto, you get voting rights, and every week you get presented with 350 new fragments. So actually every week Botto internally creates a few thousand new images, and it makes a selection that it presents to the community, and they vote, almost like a Tinder kind of thing. And in the end, every week, the most voted piece gets minted and sold on Super Rare.
And how are you a stakeholder of Botto?
Sorry?
How do you become a stakeholder of Botto?
Well, you buy Botto. So Botto is a currency, like a token, and it's the lifeblood of Botto. And by buying a little bit and staking it, you get every week voting points. So the piece gets then auctioned at Super Rare, and then what happens is Botto takes the Ethereum it earns, buys its own Botto on Uniswap, and then burns the Botto. So it means initially I think there are 100 million Botto, but the more Botto sells, the less Botto there are. And the theory is, of course, that if you own Botto, that the Bottos you own over time, kind of because they are kind of part of something that gets smaller and smaller, rises in value. And of course, it went to the hype curve, so that's something for me to learn. Yeah. And it's also actually the first project where I'm not doing everything myself. So I proposed this idea to one of my patrons, and they then kind of assembled a team of experts in kind of community management and kind of whole smart contract writing and UX, UI, and I'm just really the guardian of Botto, so the AI. So I'm very protective about the story, how Botto is, what it's supposed to do, where it's doing exhibitions, what kind of collaborations it might do, because that's kind of the thing. In the end, we have now, I don't know, every week a new AI is popping up that makes pretty pictures. And being an artist is not about making pretty pictures, but having something like a coherent story, something that people can see there is some development going on. So. And that's and the community, I mean, it's interesting because, there are people it's like a beautiful game, and I think everybody feels, so it's, at the moment, Botto is more like a hybrid organism of a community that kind of is taking care for the little AI child, which it's like, for me, the AI is currently like a toddler. It doesn't know much, or like a savant toddler. So it's pretty good at making images, but it doesn't know anything else. But at some point, the AI will evolve. There will be new code added, new capabilities. And of course, at some point, I'm aiming even for, actually I can't say I anymore, because I'm just a part of the community. I don't, there's full governance now. Of course, I can vote, but, and hope that they don't kick me out. But so it's already kind of, there's a separation, and I'm more like a foster parent who tries to do the best for this thing and see that it strives. And yeah, the dynamics are very interesting, something I had to learn.
We are over time.
Oh, phew.
But, but I wanted to end, maybe we can take one question from the audience, if there's any questions for Mario, or any comments. Go, yes, you. They're giving you a mic there.
God, I talk too much.
There.
Oh.
Hello, hello. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mario. Nice meeting you yesterday. So I have a quick question, because you were saying that now, like the AI makes the decisions, and how are you thinking about the feedback? Because that's part of an artist's life, right? Yeah. We make our decisions, our selections, but then we also can take feedback and make more experiences. And this AI doesn't do it yet, right? But
yes, it does. Sorry, I didn't mention it. So the way it works, so by voting on what Botto proposed to the community, all that data goes back to Botto's taste model. So, and then it tries to learn kind of what the community wants. So it trains, kind of, it knows, okay, I showed you all these images and you like this one's better than that. So I will try to learn what it was about these images that I try to make more of. I mean, the interesting thing is, like, well, I can be honest about it. The taste of the community is totally not my taste. So that's the thing about popularity. There's actually a project by two Russian conceptual artists from the 90s called Painting by Numbers, in which they did kind of surveys all around the world, what it is that people love to see in paintings and don't. And then they kind of painted the most popular painting, which obviously is a landscape with people and little animals and a certain format and color. And so in a way, Botto is not really a controversial artist in the sense that it tries to please and tries to sell, of course. I mean, that's the other thing. Botto's aim is to get to create a base on which it can prevail and live on, can pay its server costs and its team costs and it's already, I mean, it's already paying for several people are now living from an AI. That's like quite fascinating to me. And well, of course, the aim is that over time, maybe it has to learn that just doing pleasing art might be a short-term solution and that it has to be more daring. But it's the question, is that the recipe to be successful in the crypto space? So it's an interesting dynamic to see kind of what's the best way to ensure long-term success for a human artist and, of course, for an AI artist. So yeah, feedback loop.
Yes, one more.
So hi, so you said yourself you don't want to please or you don't want to stay at one place for too long. So as a foster parent, did you expect that your child would go the opposite way, or did you bring it into that opposition and try for it to return to the right values that you have as a father?
That's of course the question, right? Like, are my values the right values? So in the end, I didn't want to make a perfect copy of myself in that project, and I kind of expected that it would go a certain way, the way I set up the training. I mean, there's the whole thing. When you train an AI on a certain task, and it tries to kind of be right most of the time, which means it rather tends to go for the mean and pretty much like the average. So, I mean, there are mechanisms in Botto, for example, where it knows it has to challenge the community sometimes. So from all the things it produces, it selects, let's say, a safe portion where it thinks like this, what I just created is similar to what I did, kind of, which got good response earlier, but it also knows this is kind of something that's very different from what I have created before. So let's try it at least. But in the end, that's kind of my experience too, kind of, let's say, challenging things which are not within the current aesthetic or which kind of fall out. Also, well, they are challenging for a reason that at a certain point in time, people do not really understand it yet, or do not feel like, they don't think it's beautiful. I mean, it's the same with crypto, right? I mean, 2 years ago, I guess most people would have, would not have gone for apes or something. But now, after a while, it suddenly establishes itself as an aesthetic that's totally okay, and then everybody goes for it. And the same thing, so I try to keep a balance.
Mario.
Sorry. But yeah, that's the magic thing, trying to figure out what's the best thing, like what works best. All right. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mario.
Thank you, Micol.